President Bush has stated that he does not want to politicize the Olympic Games. The very fact that the Olympic Games are in China politicizes the Olympic Games. The very fact that George Bush is in China politicizes the Olympic Games. The very fact that he even comments on China's human rights abuses prior to the Olympic Games politicizes the Olympic Games. What's his game? What is this man's game? It's all affront. He doesn't care about the human rights abuses of China. No. Please. I'm sorry. If he cared about human rights abuse, he would have gone into Somalia a long time ago to help those poor people being raped and plundered by vicious, ruthless individuals who are abusing the human lives of innocent women and children. He would have gone into, I forget the nation that had the big tsunami that thousands and thousands of people were suffering. Aid wasn't getting to them because of some generals who were obviously in complete control of the country and didn't want help from the outside world, while their people suffered and died needlessly. He would have gone in immediately and said, "Shut up, get out of the way. We're going to help your people because they need it. If you're not going to help them, we are." If the man really cared about human rights abuses, a lot of things that are happening in our world wouldn't be happening right now. So, first of all, spare me the dogma, spare me the lies, Mr. Bush. You're full of shit. Now, with that out of the way, allow me to share some things with you. In, let's see, U.S. report. No, not that one. West ignores Chinese abuses. Okay, this is from August 2008, today. China today has the world's fastest growing economy, and from the outside, China's population is sharing in the new state prosperity. But look deeper, and we will see that when it comes to human rights and complying with international law, China is still living in the ideology of Mao's dogmatic communist regime, and what the world sees is simply window dressing. Systematic human rights abuses include state-sanctioned torture, religious persecution, and mass executions. When victims' organs are sold on for transplant by the government, such inhumanity and exploitation of the dead can be compared to the Holocaust of Nazi Germany, and as then many of the world's governments chose to ignore these crimes against humanity and look the other way because China, although built of slavery and exploitation of its people, is the world's favored trading partner. ESPN report. Olympic sports. Report of Chinese abuses can't shock the IOC. Say, here's an idea. Let's 1. Assign the Olympics to a nation with a record on human rights that historically rests somewhere south of Genghis Khan. 2. Tell ourselves that this will be a wonderful opportunity for that country to suddenly bolt forward into the modern era of equal justice for all. And then 3. Act utterly shocked when it doesn't work. Now, I mean, honestly, that's pretty good. You know, I have to admit this is pretty good. So my point being that, you know, what do we have to gain from all of this? What do we have to gain? Let's look at the facts. In the last 5 years, China has sent us more poisoned goods than any other nation. Lead paint, toys that were obviously dangerous to our children, dog food and cat food that was obviously killing our pets. We are talking about a nation of people who would rather see us go away than to even give us the time of day, ladies and gentlemen. Why are we so shocked by the facts? I mean, it's beyond me. And George Bush, the audacity that the man has to even imply that he's concerned about human rights. Now let's look at the historical aspects of this. Who was the first person to actually bring détente to China? Well, it was Nixon. There was a great line in one of the Star Trek movies when it's suggested that Captain Kirk, and this is for you Trekkies, when it suggested that Captain Kirk become a liaison to the Klingons, He's all outraged because he hates the Klingons. And Spock says to him, "We have an old saying on Vulcan, only Nixon can go to China." Well, there you have it in a nutshell. And who was Nixon? Nixon was a Republican. Nixon was a president who was steeped in controversial relationships with gangsters and big money. Now, in 1999, here is a report, China's Abuse Ignored for Profit, from BNet, BusinessNet. The U.S. government and U.S. corporations continue to push for close economic ties with Communist China, and finally, Communist China, someone says it clearly, despite the country's horrendous human rights record. In Beijing in mid-November, China reached a trade agreement with the Clinton administration. U.S. Trade Representative Charlene Barshevsky and Chinese Trade Minister Xi Guangsheng applauded China's promise to lower tariffs on U.S. imports and the United States' pledge to help smooth out the way for China's entry into the World Trade Organization, or WTO. Now, all of this aside, what are we facing? We're facing a nation that now owns one of the largest percentages of our own money. They have our bonds. We're facing a nation that is rapidly becoming one of the greatest industrial giants in the world. And let's add the fact that their pollution is so bad that they still can't clear the air after days and days of needless and hapless efforts. And if you believe that they're actually changing the weather by shooting cannons into the air, then you're as stupid as we think you are. Bottom line is weather-changing technology has surpassed the cannons and howitzers of World War II, and we are living in the dark when it comes to the technologies that are available to these nations, including our own, in terms of climate control. These guys are gangsters. Let's face it. George Bush is nothing better than a gangster. He's at the table with all the other gangsters. China, Japan, you name it. All these big nations, they're gangsters. And they're sitting at the table, and they're no better than the big bosses. When they look down and they say, oh, well, let's fight terrorism. Okay, well, what does that mean? That means this little guy over here, the boss in South Chicago, or this guy over here in East LA, he's not playing ball the way we'd like him to play ball, so let's take him out. So they go in, they take him out. After they financed him, after they gave him money for his business, they take him out. Okay? Well, what do? We set up tyrants, Noriega, the list goes on. We could go on with this. Every single individual, Bin Laden, everyone that has become an enemy of our country was once aided by our country. So what are we? Are we just a bunch of gangsters at the table, taking out the ones that don't play ball the way we want them to after we finance them? Ladies and gentlemen, we're in trouble. The Hopis have a prophecy, and I'm going to change the timbre a bit here. The Hopis do have a prophecy. Among all their other prophecies, there is one that concerns me greatly. And that prophecy I've pondered for a long time. They speak of the yellow horde. Like ants, they will come from the sky. Do you want to see the day when the Chinese military is in our streets by the hundreds, and we are defenseless because we've allowed people like George Bush and others to send our military and to deplete it by fighting shadows in the desert? Are we willing to give up our own personal securities in this nation for the boondoggles of other people, of our so-called leaders, who are fighting not for us, but for the corporate greed that exists in the world? These guys are gangsters. They're all mob bosses, and we are nothing to them. We are nothing. We are collateral damage. And don't kid yourself. Don't even begin to kid yourself that they care about what happens to us. It's time to stop believing the lies. You will see a war like you've never seen if we stand up to take back our rights in this country. The common man needs to stand up once again and take charge. And they will not give up easily. They will fight like a dog cornered.